guys are so funny. You're trying to get me to do this stupid shit. And
she just whispered, "I'm a bad bitch," for anyone who didn't hear. Stop. 420.
I'm lit at Disney.
And the kids asleep in the bath.
There we go.
A ball sack station. That's what a business owner looks like. Muscles.
Don't talk shit. Just because I'm like, can't move. Had my first proper workout in forever.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Tattoo Homemakers. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say it.
You say it then.
Anyone that just basically watched ventriloquism as I opened my mouth, go, hi, and you said it. Welcome back to Tattoo Homemakers, or if it's your first time, hi, hello, thanks for joining us. My name is Lou. This is my best friend, Callista.
Hello.
And we are still on the dissociation train because it has been less than 2 weeks.
And it just keeps getting worse.
Yes, and every day is getting worse. So if you came here for like political content, that's not what's going to happen today. Mm-hmm. We are indeed a podcast that talks about tattoos, life, and everything in between. Yes. And once again, we are not going to talk about tattoos. However, I did just get an idea before this for a future episode about tattoos.
Ooh.
Instead, we are going to talk about Hugh Grant.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes, this is a really important podcast for Hugh Grant.
Yeah, so this
not for him to listen to, by the way. I don't want that. If anyone's like, oh my God, I know him, I don't want him to listen to this.
No.
Unless he wants to hear two unhinged people talk about how like he could still get it.
I think he'd be down for it, honestly. Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes, I think he'd be down to hear us like just... Essentially, we're comparing two movies that are really just the same.
Yes, these are the same movies. Same thing, just different sides of the same coin.
Absolutely.
So the movies we are going to discuss are Notting Hill, and I fucking hate you. Now you've got me thinking how to say it weird now.
I've been
Heretic is how you say it.
Yes. I've been struggling so hard. I keep thinking it's heretic, like genetic. It's Heretic. God damn it. I don't know why I'm struggling with this so hard. I really struggled with Amityville, and I could only get over that after listening to Time Suck. And they did a podcast on Amityville. And every single time he said Amityville, I just went, Amity! In my car. And I'm going to have to do the same thing with this fucking movie. They are the same.
That's how I'm currently learning Maori, is that I'm listening to kids songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like nice. The little kid songs on YouTube.
Yes.
So they like sing at you. So that way I can try to like learn how to like pronounce things.
Yeah, we're learning the language because, you know, obviously we're moving to New Zealand. And there's one other thing that makes us feel more productive and happy about the state of the world. So with that being said, there are obviously spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen Notting Hill, like that, wouldn't even count that as spoilers. It's been out for a minute. Go and watch it. It's fucking awesome.
You watched it for the first time last night. Purely because we knew we were going to watch Heretic. Jesus Christ. I've not pronounced it wrong once, and now I'm in my head about it. We knew we were going to go watch it. It's my second time watching it. I watched it on Friday with Caboose, so I'll like tell you a little bit about my first time watching it.
Please
but
do.
I really wanted to like watch it with you, and then I realized because Caboose only knows, I almost said Hugh Grant from like romantic comedies, from having a partner myself who is obsessed with rom-coms and is just genuinely obsessed with romance.
Yes, and he's in really good rom-coms.
Yes.
Like, truly, Notting Hill was everything that I wanted it to be. It was everything.
Do you want to tell them about Notting Hill?
Yeah.
But like maybe like a brief synopsis?
Brief synopsis of Notting Hill.
Play-by-play?
Absolutely. I'm going to tell you the things that I liked about it.
Okay.
Firstly, in a lot of movies, I feel like, especially like Hallmark movies, the male is the successful figure. It's the man who's rich, who's going to sweep.
Very insulted by that.
Why?
I was like, this is not a Hallmark movie.
Oh, yeah. No. This
Hallmark is like the generic version.
That's Walmart.
Like the generic, like off-brand version of good movies.
Great value. Yes.
So,
at best. Dollar Tree, truly.
Yes.
No. Notting Hill is so much better. So yeah, typically it's the dude who's in power, who's like super rich, super famous, and Notting Hill, it's the opposite.
Yep.
And it has our girl, our favorite, that I obviously can't
Julia
remember.
Roberts.
Julia Roberts. Thank you so much.
That was great.
I know. I was like, I love Julia Roberts, and I fucking forgot her name just now. Julia Roberts, obviously Hugh Grant. Julia Roberts is playing a famous actress, which is so weird watching a famous actress play a famous actor. It's so I don't know. But anyways.
It's like Inception, movie Inception.
Yes. She's an American. He is a humble bookstore owner, divorced, has a hilarious roommate named Spike. And they get together. They break up. They get together. They break up again for like 6 months. They get together. They break up for like a year.
But it's always her breaking up with him.
Always.
So he gets his heart broken over and over again.
Oh my God.
And hers is purely like circumstantial.
Yeah.
And so like, but she does have quite a fiery temper, which I appreciate because I too have a fiery temper.
It's dope.
So I felt very seen, especially like being younger and being like, oh, there is hope that I could get with a really sweet dude.
I liked it too because career-wise, she says a lot. I'm not saying that I'm famous. Calm the fuck down. Career-wise, it is different when you're dating someone from a different career that like becomes their life, so integrated in their life. You really do need to know that you're walking into circumstances that are different. Their lives are just going to be different.
That was one of my favorite scenes when he was like, why does this matter? That like the whole thing is that like nude pictures of her are splashed all over the tabloids. So she goes to him to hide after they've already split up before. And then Spike, adorable Spike, does not mean any harm by it, tells someone down at the pub that she's there. So, of course, the tabloids are there. They get a picture of Hugh Grant in his undies. They get a picture of her in his shirt and undies.
Yeah.
And she's, like, freaking out because he says, like, okay, well, newspapers today will just be, like, lining waste paper bins tomorrow. And she says, no, it's filed. Every single time someone like searches to write a story on me, this will come up. And
it's her career.
Yeah, and it's her career because her image is so intertwined with her career. And that's kind of like the same thing with tattooing, is that like who you are is like what you're like beyond just the like, I don't know, your ability to tattoo. Who you are is what attracts your clients.
Absolutely. Well, it's proving to be more and more lately too now. I mean, tattooers all around the world have seen this like culture shift in keeping clients. It's not the same. People are not walking in anymore.
Yep. Yeah,
people are looking to make a connection with you.
Yeah, they want that connection. And I mean, human beings were drawn to that. So like when she explains that to him of like, no, this is like my life. And she loves her job and it's like her career is her life. Like that was something that even like when I was like younger watching it before I was into my career, I was like, yeah, dude, I resonate with that. And it is that like completely opposite worlds. Cause like I feel that with Caboose where like obviously now he's been a part of this world like via like proxy of me. That he understands it, but like we have that discussion every time we get new friends that we're like, can we please explain this? Like it's a really hard job to explain to people, or it's like, no, it's therapy. It's also like, oh, you get this weird rock star status with people where you see people fan out over you. So there's a fun scene in it where his kid sister's like fanning out over her. And like, if you have a job in which people will fangirl out over you, which is a weird thing to say when you're like, look, I'm not famous by any means, but you do have that happens. And so, and I mean, I can't say shit because like if I were to meet like any of the really obscure podcasters that I listen to that like not, you know, there's in the sense of the whole world, not a whole bunch of people listening
your
to
podcast
I would be
famous,
fucking
you know?
like freaking out over them.
For sure. Well, I mean, when you have what's like deemed as like a, I'm going to say this in air quotes, but like cool job, it happens. A lot of people will look at you, even if they've never heard of you before. But if you say that you're this, they kind of get stars in their eyes.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's so cool. And so like, I don't know. It's just such an underrated movie. It's real. It's amazing. Yeah. It's English. I'm already obsessed with it. So good. It gives you that feeling. The reason why we're comparing the two is because it gave me, when I was watching Notting Hill, that feeling that good rom-coms or really just good movies give you of breathlessness. Like you were just like, what's going to happen next? You're like, ooh.
Well, and when she delivers her iconic line of just being a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her. And then in that moment, you're like, okay, cool. I know what's going to happen. He's going to say yes. Happy ending. Nice, neat, tied up bow. Perfect. Happy. And then when he says no, you're like, what the fuck?
There's so many like hairpin turns there. It's the like Goofy's Flight School of fucking movies.
I will agree. This is Goofy's Flight School of movies for any of our Disney lovers. And then Heretic is the Velocicoaster of movies.
Fuck that.
So if you haven't seen it, and you're down with spoilers, awesome, we're going to give you spoilers. I probably won't give like a whole synopsis of the movie just because I think that like explaining it does not do it justice.
Yeah. You gotta see it for yourself.
Yeah, but if you've been on the Velocicoaster and you've just been on this podcast for a while and you understand that like how she feels about the Velocicoaster that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And the moments where you think they're going to give you a breath, it's like for a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
And then they just hit you again way harder.
Yes.
That is Heretic. Like it is the exact correct amount of escapism that I needed because I had seen the trailer, but for some reason, and I feel like this about really good trailers is they don't stick. Like a good trailer, you're like, that looks really good. And then it just auto deletes out of your brain, so you didn't get to see all the best parts. You don't know what the fuck is really gonna happen. Like if you watch a trailer, you're like, okay, so Hugh Grant's this like creepy dude, and then he's gonna like trap 2 girls. Done. That's all you really know from it, or at least that's like all I remember from it. And then you start the movie, and you're following along with 2 Mormon missionaries, and they go to his house, and then I will just state, they get trapped there. There's debates about religion, which we'll get into in a second, which is amazing.
Yes.
But it does that whole thing of every time you think you might know what's going to happen, you don't. And if you think you know that jump scare is coming, fun fact, you don't. It's a 50-50 shot. Like
they got me good.
Yeah.
Got me really good.
You want to tell them your favorite jump scare?
My favorite jump scare? There's a scene where she's looking through a pipe and you think that like he's going to like, you know, like send something down the pipe. I don't know what I thought, but like I don't know.
What did you think?
I don't know. Maybe he was gonna like gas them or something like that.
Well, it's a listening pipe. It's so that way you could communicate. Because he's playing
He starts playing music. Oh, the music in the movie, by the way, is amazing. Same thing with the music in Notting Hill. Great songs.
Yes.
Amazing songs played all the way throughout. He's playing songs, and just a spider comes down the pipe. That's it.
Yeah.
It got me so fucking good. Unnecessarily good, and I was mad about it because it was like a cheap jump scare. I'm like, you bastards should not have gotten that from me, but you did.
I think that's what I liked about it was that the moments where they built up tension, where I was like, oh, he's gonna, like, she's gonna turn and he's gonna be right there.
Right.
And then he wasn't, and I'd be like, oh, dude. Fuck. I guessed that wrong. And then it was cheap jump scares, but done really well.
Yeah, they were done well.
Got me that I was like, oh no.
They were done so well. I think it's that kind of movie. Same thing as Notting Hill. It gives you that feeling of breathlessness. But like again, like we've said about the Velocicoaster, the longer you're on that roller coaster, the more scary it gets. And that was this movie as well.
Yeah.
The longer we were on it, the more I was like, what the fuck, bro?
Yeah.
That feeling of uneasiness, but also how clever the writing was and how clever the writing of Notting Hill was. Again, same coin, just different sides. And just the Hugh Grant whiplash that I received.
That you got to see him in his prime, in his like adorable sweetness. Yes.
With perfect hair. And he's so sweet. And Hugh Grant is just so charming. And I'm like, oh my God, he's so handsome. And then we were like laughing because I was like, is he going to be like sexy in this movie? You know, because like I'm like, okay, is this like a Sebastian Stan situation? Because I love Sebastian Stan in any role that he plays. He was, obviously Bucky in the Marvel series, super buff. Then he was that sheriff in Devil All the Time, and he was like a little chubbier. Still loved him. And then he was that fucking serial killer in Fresh.
Fresh. That's what it is. Yeah.
And he was
eating women.
Hot.
It's one of those ridiculous.
Sexy.
Yeah. I don't typically find him attractive, so it was a bit weird for me to be like, why are you suddenly hot?
He he became evil and then had a turtleneck, and I was like, oh my God, this is it for me. I'd be okay with that. Yeah. And so I was like, is this that situation? Like,
can we just interject? Turtlenecks. Wear them, people. They look great. I don't care what your body type is. I don't care, like, what your gender, what your lack of gender, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Turtlenecks look great. If you don't think you can pull off a turtleneck, if you're like, no, I have a really round face, you can pull off a turtleneck.
You can pull it off.
Everyone looks hot in a turtleneck.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I cannot explain it, but I swear they look great in a turtleneck.
That's like winter's miniskirt.
It is, but it's like the opposite. Where it's like, I'm going to cover more.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I don't find a long skirt particularly attractive. Like I do love a mini skirt. And then if you pair it and you do a mini skirt with a turtleneck.
Oh, you're basically a sex symbol at that point.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what gender you are. I'm going to be interested.
Dude, yeah.
So yeah, I asked Lou, I was like, is this like the same situation? Like, is he attractive? And Lou's like, I don't know. I need your opinion on it. And it took me a minute because I will say.
I didn't want to spoil it for you.
Yes.
And be like, I don't know. I wouldn't kick him out of bed.
I wouldn't kick him out of it. I was like, that's fine. Please, let me form my own opinion and we'll rediscuss. And so, they did a really good job when he answers the door of like roughing him up, because of course after watching, I didn't expect him to be like, you know, all done up the way he was obviously in Notting Hill, but they dried out his hair too. It was a little bit more scraggly looking. He's got that like old man cardigan situation going on, but the cardigan's great. Love the outfit. Actually, the outfit was phenomenal. And then like throughout the movie, you could tell that he's like a little bit roughed up. Then like they slowly give him the, you know, serial killer glasses, iconic. But there's this part of the movie where I finally decided that yes, he is still attractive. And it was the part of the movie where he took out Monopoly. I don't know why. I think it's because they were like dead in the center of intellectual banner and it was clever.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what makes him attractive is his intellect in it.
Yes, absolutely.
And I understand that this is nuts because, once again, he's a killer and he's not good and he's a bad person.
Yes.
And he's torturing people and all that jazz. But it was great because it was very intellectually stimulating.
Yes.
And he brings out Monopoly because he compares religions to like versions of Monopoly, which the original game was it the Landlords?
Yes, Landlord.
Just Landlord. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was Landlord.
Which FYI was invented by a woman.
Yeah.
And stolen. The idea was stolen by a man who then made millions off of it.
And he even says in the movie, like, it's yet another woman, like, not receiving credit for, you know, what she has started.
Which I think that's what makes him hot.
Oh, very much so. And there's so many, like, he does do a lot of metaphors when it comes to, like, religion and different kinds of religion. At one point, he compares songs. Everything is just a different iteration of it, of different things. So I think the first song was by the Beatles, right? I could be so wrong.
Maybe.
So I think it was the Beatles, and he asked the girls if they've heard that song before. They're like, no. He's like, I guarantee you have. And he's like, have you heard Creep by Radiohead? And they were still like kind of confused. And he was like, okay, how about this song by Lana Del Rey? Because fun fact, the chain goes, they sued Radiohead for making that song, but it was just different enough that they got away with it. Then Radiohead sued Lana Del Rey for making a similar song to Creep. And so the point was the fact that most religions do the same thing.
Yeah, all three, like...
The top three
religions, which is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and that all of them, like, they're just iterations, like, all of them are iterations of Judaism, but then Judaism is just a collection of other previous religions. So he like talks about like he's got a wall and how these like 10 of these like gods on this wall were all born on December 25th. And then the same story of having a like basically a miracle birth.
Yes.
And then this child goes on to be a savior
or a
and
miracle
then dies.
Death and then
And that like they all have the same like center. And so everything is just an iteration of something else.
Yeah, which was like, you know, essentially because those Mormon girls are in his house, he's trying to convince them something about religion. And we'll dig into that in a second. So basically he keeps trying to tell them that, like, basically challenging their religion and asking them, like, well, how do you know that yours is the one? You know, how do you know? And that most religion, at one point he asked them to pick between two doors in order to escape his house. And one door said belief and the other door said disbelief. And he's like, you have two options, going through this door or this door, right? And I thought that was such a beautiful scene for me because as someone with like religious trauma, that I still have like a lot of resentment towards the Catholic Church. I understand how it can help people, but I personally have a lot of resentment. It showed a lot of growth for me because these girls were so convinced that, yes, they only had two choices. And I'm like, girl, you have like 87 choices in that room.
Well, it's because the point is that they're being told that they only have two choices.
Exactly.
And that's like the point
he was trying to make too.
Yep.
Yeah, because it turns out no matter which door, and I knew it too. I was like, no matter which door they pick, this is spoilers, sorry. Go watch the movie if you didn't pause already. Both of those doors lead to the same attic. It didn't matter what you chose.
Wait, you said attic?
Or basement.
Yeah. It's because the entire movie is also just a like visual representation of Dante's Inferno.
Very stunning.
And so, yeah, you have to keep going like down.
Yep. Yeah.
And then there's like some really fun little like jokes in there where he's where like I won't ruin the jokes, but I'm assuming you've already fucking watched the movie though.
If you're like this far.
Yeah. Where he says like with great responsibility or
with great power comes great responsibility.
And the girl goes, Spider-Man. And it was so funny because when we were in the movie theater, like other people said it as well. And like Caboose had said it. And he's like, it's Voltaire. Like,
yeah, no. Again, another iteration.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. And then there was another quote. And he was like, are you quoting Frost? And she goes, no. What was it?
Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing.
Yes.
I'm quoting Swamp Thing.
That you have to go through. The only way out is through.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Is also to like reference the whole like Dante's Inferno is that you have to go through all of the levels of hell to reach like the ultimate destination.
Crazy.
And so like, yeah, it's intellectually so intelligent.
Yes.
But what is the main theme that you said? We'll get to that.
Oh, the main theme is he basically has to ask her, like, which religion is the truth? Like, what was the point of you being here? Because essentially he gives her the illusion that she has choice. Again, with the two doors. Gives her the illusion that she has choice. Turns out he was playing the strings all along. And she ended up exactly where...
Did you say playing the strings? Or strings or pulling?
Playing the strings. Oops, it's pulling.
It's pulling because it's to represent a puppet, but I like playing like it's an instrument.
A violin,
Yeah, that's nice. I like
that. But so she ends up being in the place where he wants her to be, and she makes that realization on her own. And he's like, no, but tell me why. Tell me why you're here. And she's like, you were trying to tell me that the only true religion is control. Oh, chef's kiss.
Yes.
So fucking good. And mind you, again, it's like there's some blatant metaphors in there. Obviously, it's a man trying to establish control over women. And then there's like more subtle ones over there where it's like, the illusion of control over like the two doors. That's the whole thing's an illusion. There's a scene where another woman tells her that it's all fake, like none of it is real.
Which I really liked that because once again, I thought it was because religion controls women more so than it controls men. Like religion is inherently misogynistic. It's designed to control women and oppress women.
Yep.
Which is why like places like the US, I'll just tap into politics for 1 second, which is a Christian-based country. No matter what you say, and you're like, no, it wasn't based on that. Like it's still fundamentally based on that like only white men that owned land, but basically only men ever had power, and it continues to be that way.
Yep.
So in that sense, it is still following that same Christian like system of misogyny.
Oh, for sure.
So the fact that it was another woman and it, like a victim of him that like very slyly put in there, like, hey, none of this is real.
Yeah.
Like was to me one of the, like the beautiful points is that like she knows that like she's gonna die, and she's like, nah, bitch. This shit ain't real.
This shit is not real. And it turns out like he like ends up like keeping multitudes of women like cold and hungry. And it's very parallel to the rest of how religion works, where it's like those fasting, like, if you're a true servant of God, you fast and you sacrifice so much physically that like emotionally you begin to believe the same thing.
Well, that's what abstinence is. Abstinence is just the like starvation of physical touch because like all animals need touch, like mammals more accurately. So mammals need touch and comfort. And then they take that away by saying, no, you cannot like tap into what religion deems your like baser animal desires.
Yes.
But it's all just designed to, through control, keep you hungry. So that way they can continue to control you. And like, I loved it as somebody who like, I grew up in the church, but from like a really early age, none of it made sense. Like it just read to me as that, as like control, but I didn't necessarily have it as in those like words. So hearing it in that movie as someone who does not necessarily have like a ton of religious trauma, because like I was a small child in the pew being like, I don't understand. Why is God a man? Or like, why is it represented as a man? Why are all these people men? Like very early, like feminist, where I was just like, none of this makes sense. Like, I just don't get it. Like, and then especially like learning about other parts of the world and being like, wait, everyone kind of believes the same thing. It doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So then hearing it in such a succinct way, which is like the only true, like one true religion is control, was like such a beautiful thing for me, because I was like, oh, that's what that is. So like on my like psychology studying side, I thought it was really interesting, because then when people are like, yeah, I have religious trauma, and it's like, but at that point, like you just need to, not just need to, but it is the easy like answer to like come back to as like a touchstone of like, no, that's like me dismantling the control that someone else had over me.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I think that's the thing with the religious trauma is like when you, or at least this is my experience, like when you separate yourself from whatever like religion you were twisted in, it comes back to bite you in the most like subtle ways that you don't realize that like, okay, where does this stop and where does this end almost? Where like, okay, this is cultural. And then, oh, turns out this is also religion on top of that. Because for me, after separating, I just tried to like forget that it all happened. And that's not how that works. That's not how your brain works.
Well, I mean, because at that point, you aren't recognizing the control aspect of it or the control that religion has over culture. And I think that it's the like, most culture is built around religion. It doesn't go the other way.
Yeah.
Like at one point in the movie, she says like that religion is no longer the center of culture. And that's the trick there is that like you can't separate religion and culture because they are intertwined. Like cultures are built around religion. So like in like Hispanic worlds, it is Catholicism.
Yeah. Totally.
So like that's where like you're going to build that as your cornerstone, your touchstone. And I think that it's like hard to say, okay, well, I'm just going to ignore everything I learned. And that's basically saying, okay, well, I was emotionally abused as a child, but I'm not going to see any of that. And I'm just going to ignore it. And then, yeah, it's going to flare back up in like weird ways because like you're not actually looking at to be like, hey, I was taught these essentially arbitrary things. So that way I would be controlled.
Oh, for sure.
And I think like having that kind of like reference point of a touchstone of like, no, these all come from the like core belief that you are meant to control me, then for me has that like liberating aspect of much like being like the child of an abusive parent was that sense of like releasing, hey, these aren't my inner voice. Like my inner voice doesn't look at people like right now we're learning a different language. So like there's a lot of vulnerability in that for me because, and the amount of people that I have met that have come from like mixed households that have the same trauma of if you had parents or grandparents that spoke a different language and you did not physically represent that language and like what they believed, like I simply wasn't brown enough. So my mother and my grandmother more commonly said it, where I was too white, or she would put it like I was too gringo to be able to speak Spanish. So even when I tried, I was mocked for it because she's like, no, you're too gringo for that.
Yeah. Gatekeeping.
And so yeah, like there's like nothing I could ever like do that would make me like Mexican enough for her. And like that's that same thing of like, yeah, like you said, it's gatekeeping. So it's embedded in shame. And so as I'm learning this new language, I'm like able to give myself leniency because if someone else says a word wrong, I don't fucking care. I'm not like, what? You're so dumb. I can't believe you'd say that. Whereas like that's how they like treated me. And so to be able to remove that, to be like, that's not my belief. That was someone else, once again, trying to control me.
Yeah.
Then it makes it, for me, at least a little bit easier to then look at it objectively and be like, well, you know what? Maybe not everyone is looking at me and judging and being like, what are you, a fucking idiot? You can't say that, right? Because that's how I don't view it like that. Like if as we're learning and you say the wrong word, I'm not going to be like, what?
Yeah.
And so it is that like being able to look at it as something external to yourself and your fundamental beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's that like acknowledging too, like I think that's always the first step, right? Is like, no, this actually did affect you. And it will continue to affect you regardless of if you deny it or not. It still lives within you. So it's your job to again heal from that and try your best to again process it and recognize it where it comes. Because I mean, the scene in the movie where he was trying to convince them and did successfully convince them that they only had two options. That showed a lot of growth for me where I'm like, oh, I've done like, there is a lot of like subconscious growth, especially if you're just working around trying to dismantle whatever toxic culture you were growing up in, but you still have to like kind of tip your hat at religion for fucking you up a little bit. But that scene really spoke to me because it was like, oh my God, I have actually grown a lot because I would have been convinced that there were only 2 options, but I'm like, no, girl, there are 87 in that room.
Oh,
you
yeah.
Fucking run.
I'm like, bitch, I'm not going down that goddamn thing.
One of you could grab that fucking candlestick holder and fucking clock his noggin. I am not going down either of those fucking doors.
Yeah, well, I think, that's the crazy part. I'm like, you better push my ass down there, because, like,
you better figure out how to get me down there, because I'm going to figure out how to not. Mm-hmm. No, absolutely not. Yeah.
But I think that, like, really does show that growth of, like, because for me, I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'll go back that way. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, great. I'm going to go back in the living room. Yeah. You said it doesn't open till morning? Awesome. I'll sit by the door. Thank you. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to trust you here that, like, that door does not unlock till morning, awesome. We're going to go sit there.
Yeah.
And if you come anywhere close to us, we're going to fight you.
Yeah.
But, like, that is that whole, like, point of just, like, that, you know, just leading the blind and being like, here you go. This is your one way to salvation. Mm-hmm. And, like, that's the whole point of, like, getting outside is that it's their freedom and salvation. Yeah. It's like, no, it's a giant trap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge trap. I just, don't get me wrong, this entire movie wasn't just, like, bashing religion either. I think it's still worth looking, because even at the end, she, like, starts to pray. And she admits that, like, you know, there was an experiment and that prayers don't actually do anything. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make a difference. But regardless of that, she still thinks it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that's the good that you can take away from religion, is that, like, if it does grant you inner peace, but, like, at what cost? You do have to eventually ask yourself, at what cost am I trading my freedom or my autonomy as a human being for peace? And can I find that peace within myself and not have to lean on an organized religion? I'm not a big fan of organized religion, as you can tell. I mean, I think it's cool to be spiritual. I think it's beautiful to, like, find peace somewhere else in a way that, like, resonates with you. One of our favorite authors says that God looks different to everyone. Mm-hmm. God can be different things to everyone. Mm-hmm. So God can be the universe. God could be, I don't know.
A ladybug.
A ladybug to you. God could be, I don't know, your consciousness. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is, again, don't hurt people with it. Again, that's organized religion, dude. Has hurt so many people.
Well, I think that's the problem, right? Is that, like, more people have died because of organized religion.
And suffered because of organized religion.
And continue to suffer.
Yeah. Even the people practicing said religion continue to suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
Basically.
See, Notting Hill.
Both of them are girl empowerment movies, no matter which way you look at it. Both of them empower you to just, you know.
Yeah, to make your own decision. Because that was also, once again, back to Notting Hill. Yes. My favorite part is that she's the one that initiates all the kisses.
Yes, absolutely.
And then she's the one, and you watched it for both times in which, like, couples got together, because when Honey gets with Spike, she asks him to marry her. So, like,
so cute.
Yeah, the women are in charge in these, so they are, like, very, like, empowering to the fact of, like, hey, we're going to dismantle the patriarchy in these senses. That, yes, I get that, like, romantic comedies still prioritize. I don't know. I think they do, and I think they don't. I think it depends on the movie, because to me, I don't necessarily think that it prioritized just romantic love. I think that it did a really good job of prioritizing, like, all love, because, like, the connection he has with, like, his friends is such a beautiful thing.
It is gorgeous. It is stunning. Yeah. I mean, all over, both of these movies were incredibly emotionally intelligent. Not just because it, like, recognized women as the autonomous beings that they are, but it also recognized, like, men and their ability to be able to intellectually process said relationships. I think that's the hard part about, like, a lot of, like, we'll say Hallmark rom-coms, where it is very much for the male gaze and very, like, patriarchal centered, where, like, it's only the man that's successful, you know?
Or if you have the, like, woman that's successful in it, she's also, like, deeply flawed and then missing something, like, huge. Yes. So when you have movies like The Proposal, where you've got Sandra Bullock and she's a CEO and she's like, I think it's A Proposal. Now I'm doubting my own rom-com abilities. But basically they just walk around missing something. And they usually show, like, a lot of, like, romantic movies will show, like, the woman is missing something and the man's, like, totally fine in and of himself,
and he's just a whole person.
Yeah, he's a whole person, but
and
she's
nowhere near being a CEO. And Where it's still like knocking her down a couple pedestals. Yeah, both of these movies did not have that.
Yeah, and I think that's what I liked was that like it was the feminine aspect of like, hey, and like men aren't afraid of, because I think that's one of the other things that I liked in Heretic is that like when she like attacks him and she's like, all right, fuck you, like I got this. The fact that you can see that he's like happy in that moment where he calls her brave girl and he's just like, this is fucking great.
Oh, he
like,
at one
he's
point
like so proud of her for that.
Yeah, and he tells her like, no, do challenge me. I would love to have that, because he really is like, even though he's a psycho, he's in it for the intellectual debate.
Yes,
he's in it to be like very philosophical and like, no, I want to know if you are such a believer, then like you need to convince me and give me counter arguments for what I am about to say to you, you know? And it's just like a very stimulating thing. And it's, I don't know, stunning movies.
Yeah, and the cinematography.
Oh, and it's so clever. The editing is also clever. It's so fucking good. At one point, he makes a reference to, those songs that I was talking about. And they started said song way before he like really got into the depth of his monologue. But there was a perfect pause from the time he ended his monologue explaining that Creep was like based off of this song, where it allowed the viewers to play Creep in their head that perfectly sunk up with that song. So you knew exactly why Radiohead got sued. It was so beautiful. It was just so well done.
Yeah.
Oh, well, if you haven't seen those movies, go watch them.
My favorite part of both movies are both technically like transition scenes. From Notting Hill, it's when they sang Ain't No Sunshine, and he walks through the market stall, and you go through all the seasons, and there's a pregnant woman at the beginning, and then she's like holding her baby at the end to like show you this like time lapse.
Yes.
But how I thought it was such a beautiful like scene, because like though, you know, in this scene he's just walking through and he's obviously like sad, but it was showed how like the whole rest of the world just continues. Like everyone just goes on without you. So no matter what the fuck is going on in your head and your whole world is fucking crushing down.
Yes.
The rest of the world is still revolving.
Incredibly realistic.
Yeah.
And might I add, Twilight ain't got shit on that fucking transition. Twilight directly ripped that shit in New Moon, my favorite one.
So that's that iterations.
There's iterations, yep.
Yeah.
There's your iteration, yeah.
That was also something that I did enjoy from Heretic. Let me tell you my other scene that I love from Heretic is because if you know me, I love miniatures. I'm literally obsessed with them. And then if you put a person in a miniature, bitch, it's over. I'm done. It's amazing. That's the best. And he has a, like, to represent Dante's Inferno, he has a miniature of his house and he, like, moves the people around. So, like, it's very akin to Bly Manor in that sense. Or
yeah.
It is Bly Manor.
He, like, makes miniatures, too, like,
like
actively
while he's carving
out.
Yeah, because he carves out the
like, minister or whatever.
Yeah, I forgot what he's called now. But, yeah, he like puts him at the door because he like knows the things that are going to happen. Yeah.
Like they're going to check on the girls and see where the fuck they are because they didn't return to the church and whatnot.
Yeah. So, and it shows her as she's like running out of this like, basement. And then it shows her in the actual miniature. And then she like steps through a door and is in the actual room with the miniature. Beautiful, amazing transition.
Gorgeous scene.
Yeah, perfect. Where it's like she's just a pawn in this game. Beautiful representation. Loved it. But I did want to say part of that like iterations that really helped me is that like you guys have probably heard me talk about this before. If you haven't, I've been copied my whole life. And it's really frustrating. And we talk about it a lot because when you are someone that gets copied a bunch, and don't get me wrong, I'm not an original either. I'm not out here just doing everything by myself. If I break down all the people that influenced me as a child, or you like in your sense, you watch the movies that I watched, then you're like, oh yeah, you're like small facets of each one.
Yep.
But it's like to an extreme level in which I'll wear something and then I'll my hair is a perfect example. I dyed my hair blue in middle school because I was part of the National Junior Honor Society, and they weirdly made you dress up like tiny little virgins. Like you had to wear white dresses, white tights. It was very like gross. Once again, even as a small child, I was like, this is perverse. Yeah. Why do we look like little fucking brides here? I don't like it. And I had long blonde hair down to my butt. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to fucking do this. this is weird. You're making all of us like look like we're getting weirdly married to each other because the boys have to be in little like slacks and a white shirt, and the girls have to wear white dresses, like knee length. And this is supposed to be for school. Don't appreciate this. So I dyed my hair blue. More accurately, my mom did it to piss off my grandmother, but then it like reversed, and it was a whole reverse psychology thing. Oh. So then they were both unhappy with my hair. They basically were playing chicken with my hair.
Oh my God.
I got to have blue hair, and then I had to fight the school on it because the school was like, hey, that's distracting. You can't do it. Fought the school on it. And then like that was near the end of the school year. And by the next school year, so many fucking kids had their hair dyed. And it wasn't like, okay, cool, they all dyed their hair different. No, they all dyed their hair fucking blue. And so like as someone who was like had that in more instances in which I can fucking name, it gets really frustrating because you're like, dude, I didn't do this so that way everyone else would do this as well. And then so hearing that iterations, I'm like, you know what? That somehow makes it better in my brain than being like, okay, so you're just copying me. I'm like, you know what? It's iterations.
Yep.
And just like with the music, you changed some. You didn't change enough to make it an original thing. And that's that like frustrating part is you're like, can you just like do your own version of it? Be inspired and like go somewhere else with it? No, you just like ripped it. So it did help me to be like, oh yeah, everything is just an iteration of something else.
Yes. Yeah. It gave you that release, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, that makes it a little bit better because it never hit for me either when people were like, imitation is a sincerest form of flattery. I'm like, no, it just kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Imitation just kind of sucks, dude.
When you're like stoked because you're like, look at this awesome fucking idea. Fucking great. No one's done this kind of shit before.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, so now I'm just like.
So we're all hopping in, huh?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I didn't realize I invited you to the party.
Yeah. So that was like I think one of my biggest takeaways.
Yes.
Was besides that like control is the ultimate religion.
Oh my God.
The truest religion is control. And also there's always going to be iterations.
So good. There's always going to be
people
iterations.
Always be copying.
I learned that Hugh Grant is sexy both ways. And I also learned that, I don't know, this movie has got me thinking a lot more about like what I experienced as a child. The religion culture thing was really good. Because like you said, you can't really have one without the other. Like religion starts first, then the culture's kind of built off of that.
Well, and they influence each other because they even talk
really
about
do.
that in the movie, how polygamy was something that Joseph Smith promoted in Mormonism. But then when it became culturally unacceptable, that's when it changed. That's when they
brought that
up. We've had like was it a revelation? I think it's a revelation. And so now it's changed. And so that's that part of like, I think that culture and religion are genuinely intertwined because like once again, when you look at American culture, it is very Christian based.
Oh, incredibly. And I mean, that's the thing is like, why else would people have gotten so mad at Starbucks for changing their like winter themed cups instead of it being Christmas? They were just solid red. Do you guys remember when that was a huge thing?
Yeah. And when everyone started saying happy holidays.
Oh my God.
And everyone lost their mind. And then you want to say that, no, it's not a Christian based country, but like, that's where you can see it. Is that like the two of them are so intertwined, so you can't just dismantle and be like, okay, well, I'm going to dismantle my religious beliefs. Is it's like, no, those also come into those cultural beliefs. Like they're genuinely intertwined in there.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I've learned that, giving that like under a new like scope of things, it's like, I've always looked at it, but now I can look at it through a different lens. That always helps like deepen my own understanding with myself and like how I react to things and how I react to myself and how I react to whatever inner narrative is going on. Because I like when you say that like, oh, this voice isn't my own. I think a lot of people think that because they experience an inner narrative, it has to be their voice. Yeah. And breaking that down of like, no, is it actually your voice or is that your programming? Like, and where did this come from? Who is this? Or what group of people is this? What group told you this? And how is it either setting you free or holding you back? So.
Yeah. And if you don't know how to do that, quick side note, I always like to think about it as either A, talking to someone you love. So like if I'm not going to judge you for saying, like for pronouncing a word in a different way, then I shouldn't judge myself. And then if you're even like, oh no, I would judge that. Okay, then would you talk to a small child that way?
Yeah.
Would you say like a 3-year-old and be like, well, Then if you wouldn't talk to a 3-year-old that way, it's not your voice. It's not your actual like inner monologue. It's been put inside of you somewhere and probably in a way in which to control you via shame.
I mean, that's kind of what they say about like generational trauma, right? If you want to be a cycle breaker, then like you really do have to do the work in order to not become the parent that abused you. So, yeah. At the end of the day, you guys should go watch both movies if you haven't already.
You should also, FYI, watch them back to back. Do one.
So good.
Yeah, like I mean, you could do it the other way too, I guess. You could go like down. Heretic now, and then like after that Notting Hill, if you want like a beautiful palate cleanser.
I really like the Notting Hill first.
Yeah,
though. That was
I think
great.
that like watching Notting Hill and then watching Heretic, you're like, oh wow, because it is like a beautiful like whiplash moment of like he is so sweet. And then he is crazy.
And he is so scary. And then he's like kind of sexy, but that's not okay. And then also, we're still empowering women just in very different ways. And I do feel breathless just in very different ways.
Yeah. You went from being like hopeful, breathless. To like being like, oh no.
To like, oh my God.
That being said, if you go to the movies, do not order a large popcorn for this. Do not order like as much food as you would typically order. I ordered nachos because that's what I typically order when Caboose and I went and saw it. And I ate less than half of them because once again, like the Velocicoaster or any other roller coaster that just gets more and more intense, you're going to eat for the first part. And I paid attention to her like during it because I was like, I wonder if that's just me. But it puts you in that fight or flight sense where you just, the desire to snack during the movie shuts the fuck down.
Yeah.
So like you're only going to be eating your shit for the first half of the movie. And then you're like, no, I'm okay.
So you've been warned.
So yeah.
All right. Well,
on that note, what's your win for the week?
Ooh, my win for the week is having 2 days off and enjoying every freaking second of them.
After working for multiple 6-day work weeks in a row?
Yes. I'm so excited. I forgot how much a 2-day off streak just hits fucking different after you've been putting in some fucking crazy work. It's nice. That's my win for the week is not doing anything.
I love that.
What's your win for the week?
My win for the week is going to the movies today.
Yeah.
Oh, and I tattooed my chest today.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So I'm like working on like my chest piece again.
And that's like a fun, like hopefully recharging thing for you.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's super dope. It's nice to like, I don't want to go to Disney and only have like a half a boob done. So I at least want to make sure that it's like even for Disney.
Absolutely. Because
I don't want like Bing Bong to see my boob and be like, dude, what the fuck? Am I just like hanging out? I'm not even in the clouds.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
We're going to Disney. All right, y'all.
Less than 2 weeks. All right. So on that note, we will see you back next week where we are going to talk about opinions. Because I got a lot of shit to say, you guys, on a lot of random things.
We've got quite the monologue that was sent to us to talk about as well. It was very humorous. Hopefully y'all will like it too. But we'll see you then.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.